Good morning, Bulldog fans. I'm Reese Calhoun,
Isaiah Kennard.
And Briar Haggerty.
and we are joined by the Mayor of Heath.
Mark Johns.
So, first of all, a pleasure to have you. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited. This is going to be fun.
Thank you. So we're gonna ask you questions like we did with Miss D and Mrs. Myers. So, Brad, if you want to go first, or
Why do I gotta go first?
okay. So, what did you do before becoming mayor?
Oh, good question. Okay, so, thank you. All right, so before becoming mayor, I was working for a software company as a project manager. So, towards the end of 1999, my wife and I and our young daughter moved to the Orlando area. I started working for this company that designed and marketed software for small to medium-sized banks. And so I worked there for 4 years. And then when we moved back up here and bought our house in Heath, they actually set me up to work from home. So we're talking 2003. It was before working from home was, a trendy thing, right? And so what I did, I was a project manager helping clients that purchased our software go from the point that they had purchased it to the point that they were then up and running. And so I was working with, banks and people from all over the country. Sometimes I would have to fly to them, but mostly I could do everything I needed to do with them remotely. And so, working from home was easy for me. If I'd had a high-speed internet connection and a phone, I could have worked at the North Pole and it would have been just as effective. So I did that for 10 years. And then I was elected mayor of Heath in November of '09, took office at the beginning of January 2010.
What made you want to run for mayor?
Well, that's a really good question. Okay, so first of all, I've always had, even when I was little, just a sort of a general interest in government, in history. And, when we moved back here, again, we moved back in '03, bought our house in Heath, and I was, wanting to try to do something to give back to the community, had gotten involved in a couple of, little things. In '09, there was an election for the mayor of Heath. I thought, I might run, but I hadn't quite decided. Now, this is where the story gets a little corny, but I'm telling you, it's true. So my younger daughter was in the first grade over at Garfield at that time, and she had broken her arm. And I was taking her back to her class. This was January of '09. I was taking her back to her classroom. And as I was walking back up the hallway to leave the building, there was a row of kindergartners walking down the hallway in the opposite direction. And for some reason, I just started looking at their faces. And I started wondering, what is Heath going to be like when they grow up? Is it going to be a community where they're going to want to live, going to be able to get a job, want to raise their family here? And just looking at their faces and thinking about that, that's the moment that convinced me, okay, I'm going to try to run for mayor and do what I can to try to help make Heath be that community for young people growing up. And I keep track of that class. As a matter of fact, I believe that class would have graduated from college last year. And but that's still the thing that drives me to do my job, to try to make our community a better place for those of us who live here and for young people in our community so that hopefully they'll want to stay here.
So, what did you want to be when you were growing up?
Okay. When I was growing up, I wanted to be a sports writer. I went to Ohio University, which has an excellent journalism school, OU, oh yeah. And I wanted to be a sports writer. I worked for the student newspaper. I was the sports editor my junior year. I was the sports editor my senior year. I would have lived in a cardboard box if it could have been in Chicago covering the Bears or the Cubs or something like that, right? But, it's funny. Life, after I graduated, I was doing some sports writing for a group of weekly newspapers that's owned by the Columbus Dispatch. Now, one thing that I learned, and I think you guys will learn too, is that in your life, there are different doors of opportunity that open. And you never really know quite when they're going to open, but you always want to be aware when they do open. And don't be afraid to walk through those doors of opportunity that do come in your life, because you never know, where it might lead you.
Was there a specific sport you wanted to like write about, or like was it just like generalized?
I would have been fine writing about any sport. I'm a hockey fan, so I felt like I could have covered hockey. All through my youth, right up through my senior year of high school, I played baseball. I went to Lancaster High School and I was a catcher on their baseball team, and so I know the game very well. I also know football pretty well. I mean, when I was a kid, I was just a sports junkie, right? I would watch any kind of sport. Back then, when I was little, ESPN was just starting, and they didn't have Major League Baseball, and they didn't have the NFL, and they didn't have the NBA. There's a sport called Australian rules football that they would put on. And I still to this day will turn on, Fox Sports 1 and watch Australian rules football games. And so really, I just love all kinds of sports. And I think I would have been comfortable in a sports writing career covering, any sport, not one in particular.
So you're the announcer for the Heath home football games, right?
Correct. And the boys' basketball games.
Where did you get like the iconic bulldog rumble, like touchdown, like anything like that?
Sure. Well, I've had a lot of opportunities to watch football games, basketball games in different college and professional atmospheres. And, one of the things that they do at those venues is that the PA announcer will try to, hype it up a little bit, right? Get people excited. And so I kind of took my cue from those experiences that I had. One of the things that I'm very aware of is that I never want to say on the mic, anything that is disparaging toward the other team, certainly not any of the other players. But at the end of the day, this is a Heath home game. And so I'm going to make it fun for the Heath fans, because that's what we're there for, right? So, yeah, that's kind of where that came from.
So, like, going back to, like, when you became mayor, like, what was, like, the hardest thing you had to go through?
So when I first became mayor, our area, our country, was still in a deep recession that began in like 2007, 2008. And so our city tax revenue was quite down compared to what it had used to be. And so when the city doesn't have the revenue to provide the services that people want, that becomes a challenge. You've got to start to prioritize. Obviously, safety forces, police and fire, are right up there among the highest priorities. But they're not the only things that make a city a place where people would want to live. Our street department has a fantastic reputation of plowing the snow and the ice off the roads in the wintertime. I know students might not like that because you're not going to get as many days off, but for those of us who are traveling on the road, we appreciate it greatly. But even those kind of basic services were a challenge to try to provide at a quality level, because we just simply didn't have the money. And we're not the federal government where you can just spend money that you don't have and print more. We have to live within our means. And so starting off those first couple years or so, it was really a challenge, trying to continue to provide a level of service that people wanted, while at the same time, doing it within the revenue sources that we had.
when did you start doing like the announcements for like the football games and basketball games?
So I want to say football was first. It might have been the 2011, 2012 season. I mean, so I've been doing it. I've been doing it a while. I mean, this is at least my 13th year. I really wish I could. I really wish I remembered exactly when I started. And I don't know, there might be somebody out there that does remember that. But I did football first, and it was either the 2011 season or the 2012 season. And then after doing that for a year, maybe 2 years, the opportunity opened up to also do the PA announcing for the basketball games. And so I started doing the basketball games afterwards. So I've been doing football a little longer than I have basketball, but I really enjoy doing both. It is so fun for me. Honestly, it's a pressure release for me. You know, as you might imagine, my job from time to time can be a little bit stressful. And so to get behind the mic and have a little fun and hype, people up and get people excited for cheering on the Bulldogs, I enjoy it. I've always heard back from, for years and years now, I've always heard back from the student athletes that they really appreciate me doing it, that they like the way I do it. And so, if they appreciate it and I enjoy doing it, I want to keep doing it.
What is the coolest thing you've seen about Heath being mayor, and what is something you're like excited for to see in Heath?
There's one thing, I say this all the time to people, and I truly believe it to be the case. It doesn't matter what it is. It can be your personal life. It can be your professional life. It can be the life of this community. It can be, how you are as a student. It really doesn't matter. Things are either getting better or things are getting worse. Nothing ever stays the same. And so, one of the things that has really excited me in my almost 16 years now as being mayor is the increase in the number of manufacturing companies and the jobs that they bring into our city for two primary reasons. First and foremost, these jobs at our area manufacturers pay pretty good money. I mean, people can get these jobs and actually, raise a family on these types of jobs. And so to be even just a little part of helping to create opportunities for people in our community and beyond to have better paying, better skilled jobs, I find that to be very satisfying. I feel as though I'm doing something to try to help people out. And then, second of all, it's just another indication of how our community continues to grow and become stronger. Our city motto for a long time has been City of Progress, Citizens with Pride. And I keep that in mind every day. And as long as I'm working on things that help to achieve one of those two ideas, City of Progress, Citizens with Pride, as long as I'm working on those kind of things in a day, I feel like I've had a good day.
Was the Chick-fil-A like strategic, putting it right before the election?
No. Believe me, for years, my wife and my daughters have been on my back about, why don't we have a Chick-fil-A? When are we getting a Chick-fil-A? Can't you bring a Chick-fil-A? As mayor, I can't wave a magic wand and just make anything happen that I would want, or else we'd have had a Chick-fil-A quite some time ago for no other reason than to get them off my back. But I had been, talking to the real estate person at Chick-fil-A for quite some time. And I wanted them, many people in the community wanted them to be in our community. They wanted to be in our community. But they needed to find the right property that fit what they wanted to do. I mean, Chick-fil-A, right? A lot of people go there. Big drive-through line. You have to have a lot of space in order to be able to have all those cars parked and all those cars waiting through the drive-through and everything. So, and when you're Chick-fil-A, you can afford to be picky and get the exact right property that fits what you want to do. So here's how that went down at the end. Again, they had looked at a couple of different properties in Heath, and for for other reasons they just didn't work out. So when Frisch's announced that they were closing their doors, and if you recall, they actually ceased their operation quite soon after they announced that they were closing their doors. So when they announced that they were closing their doors, I reached out to this real estate guy that works for Chick-fil-A, and I said, hey, I think you should check out this property. It's the right size for you, because a lot of people don't know. It's right beside the hotel. That land behind the hotel is part of the parcel that Frisch's was on. So when Chick-fil-A bought that, when they acquired that land, that's part of their land too. So I was like, it's the right size for you. It's on Hebron Road, which is what they wanted. It had more than one way in and out, because there's another in and out point back in the parking lot of the Park Plaza, shopping center, kind of behind where Raising Cane's is. I said, I think you need to check this out. And they did, and they ran with it. And the real estate company closed on the deal. Chick-fil-A has already submitted a preliminary site plan to us of how the layout of it is going to be. And I don't think you're going to see too much activity on the site in the winter, but they're going to work with the city's building and zoning department to meet our requirements and get their plans approved. And once their plans are approved, they're going to demo that existing building, and then they're going to get to work on building, that Chick-fil-A. Some people have said, it's right beside Raising Cane's. I don't have any worry for Raising Cane's. They are two different operations. Raising Cane's does what they do. They do it very well. Chick-fil-A does what they do it very well, and it's not exactly the same thing. So I'm not worried about the fact that those two locations are close together. As a matter of fact, some people might argue that it actually helps them to be closer together, because if you're driving through and you see one and maybe it's too busy and the other one's not, well, then you're going to pop in the other one, and there you go. So it's exciting that they're coming. We have additional retail, commercial restaurant spaces to fill. There are things afoot to get some other places filled up as well.
Would that possibly be Waffle House and Culver's?
So Waffle House is, they have already acquired what used to be the Billy Lee's property. They're going to tear that building down and build a new facility. And I have been a Waffle House fan ever since we lived in Florida. My daughter, she was 2-3 years old, my older daughter, and my younger daughter had been born. So Saturday mornings, my older daughter would wake up. The baby and my wife would still be asleep. So I'd grab my older daughter and we'd go to Waffle House. And she'd get a waffle and she'd just pour syrup all over the place and on herself and everything. And it didn't matter, because when we were done, they came, they wiped it up, they loved it, I get my hash browns at Waffle House smothered, covered, and chunked. That's how I order it. And I was really pleased when Waffle House came and looked at that property. And it really is the perfect operation for that size of property. A Chick-fil-A could never work there because it's too small. It's too narrow. But you think about a Waffle House and how their buildings are shaped and how their parking is laid out. It's perfect for them. And so I'm sure that they'll have a successful business operation here in Heath, and people from all over Central Licking County and beyond, come to Heath for places like Chick-fil-A, places like Waffle House, places like Hobby Lobby, the different retail commercial operations that we have in the community. It's a big draw, not just for the city of Heath, but all over Central Licking County. And when you look at Newark, Granville, Heath, Hebron, Buckeye Lake, the surrounding areas, there's 85,000 people that live in the Central Licking County area, and that's what these types of operations, these restaurants and other businesses. That's what they want to see. They want to see your community is growing. They want to see that you have a good population center because, they want people to be around to drive to their location.
Do you think bringing in these new restaurants could be a downfall for some of the smaller restaurants that are slowly starting to die off? I've seen KFC not near as busy or Hotheads.
I will say this. Look, that type of business segment, the retail, commercial, restaurant business segment, it's constantly evolving, right? I was talking to a group of people a couple of weeks ago, and they were asking about the Indian Mound Mall. The Indian Mound Mall is no different than any similar type of property all across North America, okay? I'm old enough to remember, again, I grew up in Lancaster. I'm old enough to remember when the River Valley Mall, which is the Indian Mound Mall's sister, I'm old enough to remember when they opened in the mid-'80s. It was awesome, right? As a kid your age, it was great to go there and hang out in the food court and go. It was fantastic. In the mid-'80s, that was how retail commercial business operated. Now, that was 1985. In 1945, that's not the way retail commercial business was done. It was totally different in 1945. So 40 years later, in 1985, now you have these malls, and everybody wants to be located in these malls and all of that. Well, now we're 40 years removed from 1985. We're in 2025. And the retail, commercial, and restaurant business industry is continuing to evolve. You're seeing a lot more people order things online, including their food. And so businesses, stores, restaurants, they also have to evolve and adapt. Heath has long been a business hub for restaurants, stores, things like that. What was here in 1985, many of those are not here anymore, but we've got new things. It's all cyclical, right? Old businesses leave, new businesses come. As long as you continue to be a strong community that people are living in and that people want to live in, as long as you continue being a strong community, the different vacant spaces and such that you see in our retail commercial corridor of Hebron Road and 30th Street, those will get filled because those types of locations want to be in a community like ours.
I think I can think of more questions. I think that's it for today. Thank you for joining us. very
Absolutely.
much.
It was my pleasure. You guys had some great questions. I was glad to share some information with you. And for everybody else on the podcast, I hope you found it informative.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Adios, amigos.